Originally I wanted to be an engineer, but by the time I got through school in the 80s, there wasn't a lot of engineering left. You think, well, what can I do? Well, I can carve spoons. I'm making some ladles. This is a bit of older, and it's just great shape for making a ladle, because it's kind of already in there. Look, all you're doing is you're taking away the waste wood to get the spoon out, really. It's usually a glance off like that. We want to get the pith out, because that's where it's going to split. That's where it'll start. You can see straight away it's starting to take shape. Just a few blows. I like to use any of the softer hardwoods. Sycamore's a firm favourite with a lot of spoon carvers, and was traditional for the Welsh to make their caul spoons and ladles, and indeed their love spoons. But a lot of the work is done with the axe, so you need very sharp tools. I had this one made by a blacksmith on Dartmoor. He's quite the man, and yeah, it's nice to have a really purpose-made tool. You can see it's, and I've got all 8 fingers I started with this morning. Of course, you can always take more wood off, but you can't put any on. So the idea is to take only little bits off. It doesn't always go to plan. And at home I have a stack of the most beautiful kindling. You know, some of it took hours to make. They call it artisan kindling now, don't they? The more accurate you are with the axe, the less of the hard work there is to do. The sharper, the easier it is, and also the safer. With a blunt instrument, you put so much pressure behind your cut. When it goes wrong, it's spectacularly wrong. With a sharp tool, there's very little force going into your cuts. So always keep your tools nice and sharp. This is for gouging out the centre bowl. And it's a Welsh pattern called a twicam, but my Welsh is terrible, but I'd probably spit all over you. Used for gouging out as much wood as you can at a time to make the caul spoons to take round and sell in the villages. So the man was making, he was having to make a lot of them, so he didn't want to mess around right in there. In Wales, they would often burn their spoons the day that the spoon man came round. And quite often he was someone that was disabled due to an accident in the mines or in the slate works, and the community supported him by buying his spoons. And so they would burn the spoons every month. Spoon man's coming around, he'd have a couple of quid, and it was a good way of looking after people, in a sort of social context. And then if I want to do slightly more delicate, once I've gouged out most of the wood, then I go down to a little blade like that. That one, it's got a compound curve on it, so you can get deep and tight, or you can get nice and flat like that. It's an invaluable tool. The only thing that puzzles a lot of people is how do you sharpen a knife like that. So really what we use is strops. Do a lot of stropping. That's just leather with auto sole, the leather, the metal polish, just a bit of that on it, and then every few cuts or so just give it a quick go like that, and it's back to razor sharp. And then I'll leave that to season for 2 or 3 days, and when it's hardened it'll oxidize. This will probably go orange, and what you would do then is you can make it look really pretty. You can I never sand anything, only ever use a knife for the finish. It makes a far better finish. You notice if you wash up a wooden spoon at home, they go furry. Well, that's because they were sanded. When you have a tool finish, you get a nice finish, and that will always be like that. It stops the ingress of any nasties. Tool finish is the way forward. You incise your pattern with this kind of knife, and then rub in something like soot or coffee powder, cinnamon, and then oil over the top, and it brings it out really strong. It's an old Scandinavian method. It's called kohlrossing, which I'm told means burnt rose or burnt red. So, but it's one of those lost words. You can almost identify the wood by the sound it makes. This one's a shh, whereas ash has got the harder ring on the growth rings, and it chatters. Sycamore's a good wood. It's a very light coloured wood when it dries, and it's incredibly soft and carves beautifully. It's like a knife through butter. One of the properties of this is it has a very tight grain, which means you don't get any ingress of food particles. That's why rarely will you ever see a spoon carved out of oak, because of the tubular makeup of it. And you get bugs down in there, you get ill. But you can see how easy this stuff is to carve, and the grain is just absolutely lovely. I mean, a lot of the love spoons were made with it because it's very strong as well. Some woods only have like short grains, sort of interlinked, but this, it runs right up the tree, a bit like ash. That one's silver birch, which is a lovely softwood. We put the twist in it. That takes twice as long as the spoon to do, but it has a nice impact, doesn't it? It looks pretty. And then burnish, but what it does is it compacts the surface so you don't get any more. It stops ingress of food and bacteria even more. Makes a very durable finish, and it's less likely to stain and all manner of things. An extra 20 minutes, half hour, and you turn a good spoon into a great spoon, Assuming I'm not going to do what I call a barley twist on it, just do some coal rossing or just plain carving. There's about another hour's worth in here, so in total probably about 2.5 hours. It's quite a chunk of your day, but then it's very enjoyable. It's almost therapeutic. We just rock up in the woods with a Kelly kettle to make a cup of tea, grab a little bit of wood, do some carving for the afternoon with a little fire going, and it's a good way. The kids run around and get all the fresh air. It's like forest school but free. The only problem is now my boy Jack, his spoons, I can't tell him from mine half the time, and so I'm wondering if I'm selling his, but I think he'd let me know pretty quick. So that's the next generation of spoon carvers coming along. Really, the wood tells you what it wants to be. Some of it just does not want to be a spoon. It wants to be a spatula or again, kindling. This knife-proof tabard that I wear, it's an old French design, and my pronunciation is terrible, but I think it's called a tableau de protection, which basically means a protection apron. And these were used in northern France, where they used to make the hoops for the wine barrels. Before they were metal, they used to make them out of chestnut. And so there was a huge, huge industry in making these hoops. Because they weren't metal, they needed 9 hoops on each barrel. I mean, it kept a man busy, several men busy. What would happen is the French draw knife is very different to ours. And it has very short handles. And so the French don't keep their elbows in either. So when they come off the end of the piece of the wood, they slip off and could quite easily cause themselves quite some damage. It was reported of disemboweling and all sorts. Whereas we English, when we use ours, because we're very clever, got long handles and you keep your elbows in so you can't come back and hit yourself. But I thought it was a marvellous design, so I just had to make one. And it's a nice talking piece, and no one's ever seen one before. I'd imagine they were passed down from father to son. Oh, you're going to work in the cops, you'll need this. When I teach people to carve, you get people that got the visual, can visualise in their heads, they fly through it. And people that can't visualise, they have to work so much harder, but they get there. And the kids absolutely, they're like, wow, it's made from a log. I mean, half of them have never seen a log these days, unless it was on Minecraft. I get a lot of stuff from storm damage. We call them storm spoons, a lot of spoon carvers. And I've got spoons from Storm Kate. I've got one up there from Storm Doris. Never fell a tree for making spoons, so we need a storm now and again. Every cloud has a silver lining. And mine is spoon-shaped.